Welcome to Ascended Warrior, Soul Codes for a Shifting World. This is your sacred space to awaken, align, and rise in your purpose. So let's begin. Hello again. Welcome back. I'm your host, Chris Alicia, and today's episode is one that I think really goes into the heart of why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place. And that is the fear, the culture fear that we have had created for us, that has been nurtured in our environment, not just in the US, but across the world for more than a decade, is reaching a brand new pinnacle of shenanigans. And every time I watch media content, anytime I see the news, anytime I have conversations with my family or my friends, I can feel the hold that fear has on their decisions, on their emotions, on their very logic. That culture of fear has taken over their ability to think for themselves. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody. And it's the crux of why it's so important at this time to think of world events through a spiritual lens. We can't afford to take the media at its word. We can't afford to read an article and know that our emotional reaction to that article is real. I was just watching a video on the Sydney Sweeney jeans ad. And I think if you were just to watch that ad just straight on its face without any commentary, without any little snapshots or shorties or anything else to add context to that commercial, if you were just to watch it, your reaction would be very different than the way it has been delivered in the media, in social media. They put these wonderful sound bites together that culminate into emotional triggers for all of us. And this is not something new. This is something that's been going on for a very long time. Our culture and the media's control over how we feel is almost absolute at this point. So when you take a look at something as simple as a jeans commercial, that really shouldn't make you feel any sort of way. It's a jeans commercial. Regardless of all of the back talk and everything else, the stories about what it could possibly mean, it's still just a jeans commercial. So why are we so emotionally triggered by it? And it's because the fear culture that has been slowly trickling into our reality is reaching a boiling point, a point where we can be controlled by our emotions, to the point where our emotions don't come from our hearts anymore. They're coming from outside influences. So that is what I want to talk about today: fear culture, the media's control that they have over us, and how we can free ourselves from that control. So with all that being said, I understand how emotionally triggering and charged this topic is. So I ask you, if this topic interests you, to settle into the space and to open your heart, to hear with your heart. Because if we listen to this topic with the same frequency and resonance that we listen to our TikTok threads or anything else, the message is still going to be skewed. It's not going to be for our higher selves. So I ask that you ground into this moment, whether you're driving or sitting, and just envision your heart opening up to receive. Envision your heart opening up this beautiful spiral of emerald green light, just moving through your whole body, calming your cells and opening yourself up to receive this information from our higher selves, not from our human selves. So, to set the stage for this conversation, I heard a comedy special a couple months or a year ago or so, and I believe it was Chris Rock's after the Will Smith incident. And he kept talking about this crisis of certainty that we're having, this belief that our opinions are 100% correct. There is no room for discussion. And the other people's opinions, unless they're in line with ours, are 100% wrong. This black and white belief that we have had created for us and we have allowed into our existence has opened up this wonderful opportunity to be offended by everything. As if we believe that we are right and you are wrong, how do we grow? What comes next? Are we done? Have we finished it? Can we get our diploma right now and just leave this life? I would say, you know what? Check. We are complete. I am so good. I am so right. Good on me. It's so bizarre to even think about in that world. In the sense of 3D world, in the human world, it's bizarre to think that our opinions are so right that there is no room for other people's understandings, for other people's experiences, for other people's beliefs and priorities. If we think that we are right and you are wrong, what are we doing here? Why are we here on the planet at this time if we have nothing to learn from each other? If we have nothing to learn from the experiences that we have had or the experiences that our neighbors have had? The entire purpose of incarnating is to experience and grow. The experiences are going to be different. The purpose of your growth is going to be different. But each and every one of us is down here to experience a human existence and to grow from it. All the free will that you want. You can choose right or left 1,000 different times, but you're here to grow and you're here to experience things. The minute you shut yourself down from that, the minute you fall into this crisis of certainty where you are correct and everyone else is wrong, you have closed the door on your own opportunity to grow or to experience, to learn from the people around you. It makes so little sense when you break it down into this kind of logical discussion. So who benefits from this crisis of certainty? If it's not us as souls, who benefits from that? And that's really this beautiful puppet master culture, the media, those who own the social media platforms, those who own the networks. What they get from dividing us into beautiful black and white camps is control. They control how you think. They control how you feel. They control how you spend, how you vote. That emotional hook that they have into each and every one of us, whether you watch the 24-hour news cycle or you watch the comedy shows like The Daily Show, all of them have these beautiful sound bites that are intended to give you a message, an opinion. It's not necessarily your own opinion, but because we are so sure we are right in this crisis of certainty, I am only going to listen to news that validates how I feel. I'm only going to listen to The Daily Show if I agree with their opinion. I only want media content that validates my certainty. I don't know when consuming content became about making us feel more comfortable in our own opinions without asking us to expand our opinions or to hear something new. But that is very much the way that it's gone. And I see it in my own content, the content that I consume. I definitely see it in my husband's content. I hear it in my family's, in the conversations with my family, sitting around the dinner table with my family. There are certain topics you cannot even bring up without an emotional reaction. And it's because of what they heard on the news the day before or what they saw on their day programs the day before. These social media wars, the media wars that we are a victim of, we are pawns of, is raging. And we don't even know that it's happening. We feel that we gravitate towards certain news stations or gravitate towards certain types of content. And that is true. But take a step back. Again, open your heart space when you're looking at this content and ask yourself, what could this content be leading me to think or to feel? Is this honestly how I think? Am I really that upset about a jeans commercial? Do I hate that person? Do I know that person well enough to hate them? Or are the sound bites that I have consumed driving how I feel about that person, about that issue, about the safety of our countries, about the status of our economies, about whether we will survive as a species? This crisis of certainty is not just a small thing talking about what kind of jeans do you buy. It goes all the way up to how safe do you feel in your life? How safe do you feel for your children? Are you happy? Are you scared? Are you depressed? All of these things can and are being controlled by the content that we consume. And the insidious part about it is we don't even realize that it's happening. There is a theory that I learned a long time ago. And if you already know it, please forgive me, but I'm going to explain what it is. And it's called the boiling frog theory. According to this theory, if you were to take a frog and throw it into a pot of boiling water, the frog would immediately jump out. It knows it's hot, it knows this is a bad idea, and it wants to get out of there. However, if you put a frog in a pot of cold water and slowly increase the temperature over time, the frog will boil to death before it even realizes that it is in danger. It's dead. That is what is happening to us on a human level. This small, incremental turning up of the heat to turn us against each other, to make us feel isolated, to make us feel in need of things that only they can provide. It is a beautiful way of controlling us. Because if you can control the way someone feels, you can control the way they do everything in their lives. So think about how much content we have in our daily lives. Whether you watch TV, whether you listen to podcasts, whether you are on social media, we are constantly bombarded with content. Our children are constantly bombarded with content. I don't know that Scooby-Doo really had a media message back in the day for my generation to absorb, but the content now does. It's not simple, watch these guys solve a crime and then together they can go out and get sandwiches. Whomever is in control of the content, whoever is in control of those social media platforms in pushing various narratives, has a goal in mind. And that goal is to control how you feel, control how you think, and then control how you act. Boiling frog. This is not something new. This is always something that's happened, but it has slowly been getting more and more aggressive, which we can see in the state of our politics here in the US, for sure. One of the easiest examples of it is how divided we are on pretty much every issue in politics, in our economy, in our education system, in our medical system. We have a culture that has created no neutral zone, no middle ground, no compromise. You're with us or you're against us. You believe what I believe 100%, or you are wrong, and I hate you. When did that happen? Oh, slowly incremental heating of that water to the point where now I am hating on somebody and I don't even remember why. The boiling frog theory. Ask yourself, where in your life has this already happened? Because the only way to stop this trend is to become conscious of it. Paying attention to outrage headlines, to feel fear culture, to those wonderful snapshots and reels and all these other things that look so innocuous, and yet they are intended to make your emotions run high. They want an emotional reaction because when you're emotional, you're going to click. You're going to spend more time watching the content. They are going to be able to control how you think and how you act. It's not a small thing to break from, but it is something we can break from. And I'll tell you, the reason that I am filming this today to release as soon as I am is I had a dream last Sunday night. And the dream was so visceral and so real that when I woke up, I spent about 2 hours going through the nuance of the dream to figure out what it was. And I want to share it with you now. So the dream began with me guarding a sacred item. It's called like Dante's Tarot, which was very weird. And I still haven't quite figured out what the Dante Tarot was all about. But I was meant to come to this location at night and to guard this item. And it was just going to be me. It was going to be quiet. The employees knew they weren't to come back at night. Everybody had a schedule, a 9 to 5. Nobody was going to be in there. But all of a sudden, people started acting out of pattern. The employees started showing up at the place. And I wasn't supposed to let anybody into the room. But they wanted in the room badly. So they're banging on the walls, even though they knew not to come back. They knew that, well, whatever was in there was not for them. And they knew that being aggressive and violent at this location was going to bring more attention to it. So this small group of people was acting irrationally. I'm trying to calm people down. I'm trying to get the item. I'm trying to move it out. As I get the item to move it and move the small group of people that I had with me to safety, all around me, chaos erupts. People are coming out of their homes with weapons and attacking each other. People were standing 2 feet away from each other and pulling guns and firing from a 2-foot range. Just screaming nonsense, screaming hatred. They didn't know each other. It was clear. It was strangers killing strangers. And the confusion that I remember feeling on this, I just remember knowing we couldn't go anywhere near people because people were acting so irrationally and so aggressively that there would be no reasoning with them. There would be no explaining that we didn't know what was going on or that we weren't a part of whatever the anger was. We had to maneuver away from humanity in order to just survive. So I'm moving my small group of people in this sacred item away. And one of the women that was with me gets taken. She gets kidnapped and taken away. A couple minutes more into the dream, and all of a sudden this woman reappears, but she doesn't look like herself anymore. She looks like a plastic version of herself, as if she had undergone all of this plastic surgery, and now she's a perfect Stepford wife version of herself. Perfect hair, perfect body, all plastic, smile on her face, completely empty eyes. And behind her was a score more of women that looked just like her clones. And her clones, with smiles on their faces, attacked us because they wanted us to submit. They wanted us to give up so we could go where she was just taken, to stop fighting because it was going to be safer, because it was going to be less stressful as soon as we just gave up. I realized I was not powerful enough to fight her. And that is when I woke up. She just, she totally wiped out our group. Now, what the dream showed me, looking at it through that dream interpretation lens, was that boiling frog. Started out where people are just kind of doing their own thing. Yes, there is some control mechanisms involved. Yes, we have a ton of power players in there that are trying to get our money and all the rest. But slowly, the heat was ramping up to where people were becoming more and more rational, to the point where they started to do things outside of their own best interest, where they started to do things to hurt other people, even though they knew it would hurt those other people. They were willing to do it because their needs were more important than the group's needs, to the point where they were on the streets killing each other, all the way to this final stage: surrender, assimilation. If you are a Star Trek fan at all and you remember the Borg, resistance is futile. We are in this cycle of the boiling frog right now. We have not reached this stage of cloning that I saw in the dreams, but that is the eventual conclusion of this emotional manipulation trajectory that they want us on. They want us to get to the point where we no longer think and feel for ourselves, where they have full control over that, where we think we're happy, where we think we are conformed and confident and all the rest, but our emotions, our thoughts, and our actions are controlled by them. And that dream was so visceral that I stepped back and I said, okay, why am I dreaming about this now? Fear culture is not something new to me. It's something that I've known forever. And I realized it was because I needed to look at my own life and see where this fear culture was getting me. Because it was. Even in the dream, I felt I was confused by the violence, but I think a part of me wanted to take place in it too. So I looked at myself and I said, okay, where is this in my own life? And a really hard example to talk about, but one I think that is important, is President Trump. I don't watch news. I don't watch any of the television cable shows that talk about the news, but I do consume content about Donald Trump. And it's usually in the form of some version of comedy or another. The Daily Show, all the little sound bites that come out, the reels, the South Park episodes. When Trump started coming out, when he first ran for election, I was interested in what he had to say because he was coming at it from such a different way. But over time, I built a visceral reaction to his voice, to the point where I could not listen to him speak. I forced my husband to turn off his speeches when I was in the house. I told him I did not want him on the television. And up to when I had this dream, I could not look at his face or hear his voice without feeling my body actually break out in goosebumps. And after this dream, when I was sitting in my bed and I was sitting there, I was like, why am I having such a visceral, illogical reaction to a man that I honestly don't know? I know sound bites about him. I know what the media I've seen says about him. I know what the comedy specials I've seen say about him. But all of those are intended to take me down a certain path of thought and emotion. So why am I having such a emotional reaction to a human being that I have never spoken to? I can't, to the point where I can't even listen to his words. And I avoid listening to the speeches or reading into the policies. It was so it was so strong that even as a spiritual being, and I know that this lifetime is intentional, and I know that he is a soul, a divine soul, just like I am, I still could not open my heart up enough to hear his intent, to understand what his soul was trying to do. And I realized it was all of the passive content that I was consuming, even if it was just small little sound bites. Over time, over the time of his coming in through the first election to now, had slowly turned up the heat on my emotional reaction to him, to the point where I no longer had logic. I no longer had heart. And it was working against my emotional health, even my spiritual health. To be that angry and that irrevocably against a person is not who I want to be. It's not how I want to be, how I want to live. I did not realize that all of that content I was consuming, even in the small little increments that I was doing it, had built up a straight up intolerance and was controlling my emotional reaction to him. That is a really hard example for me to share, because I know how triggering he is to the world right now. So I ask that anyone who has listened this far into the podcast, I ask that you reflect on your own feelings for him, whether it's positive or negative, and ask where that reaction has been placed. Is it your true reaction? Is it a reaction from your heart, from your logic, from your experiences? Or is it a reaction from all the content and what they want you to feel and to believe? I had a friend tell me the other day, I won't mention her name on here, but it was a really good example, telling me that her husband wouldn't even fly into the US because of how much he disliked Trump. It's an honest reaction. It's a human reaction, but is that really how he feels? Or is that the heat that's been turned up on his emotions to the point where he has reached a boiling point? And that's not, he couldn't even tell you why he feels that way. It's such a subtle vulnerability that we don't realize we are inviting into our lives. I think social media is a wonderful thing. I think it has a lot of powerful abilities for people seeking spiritual awakening and understanding. But we need to be very, very aware of what we are inviting in, what we are consuming. Because if fear is the goal of whoever's in control, then freedom and unity will defeat them. If we refuse to trot along with this slow progression of control, if we refuse to hate, if we refuse to feel outrage, insulted, alone, then we are free. So the puppet masters behind this, and I do mean to do a tarot reading on this, and I've got some friends that have theories on who and what is behind this. But this group that it controls our content, and there's not that many people that control the various media channels. It's only a handful of people that control the social media platforms. They are astronomically wealthy, and they are very silent about their role in all of this. So the question that we always have to ask is, if these people do exist and they are doing this, what do they gain? from controlling us? What do they gain from putting out content that makes us feel a certain sort of way? And the bottom line is actually fairly simple. There are three major goals for any group trying to control our emotions. Keep us divided, because if we feel alone, we are more likely to consume content. We are more likely to buy certain things. They control very much how we react if we are divided. Moreover, we can't share information if we're divided. If I think I am right and you are wrong, well, I'm not going to talk to you. So that makes me easier to manipulate. It makes it easier to turn me against more people. They want to keep us afraid, keep us in fear. Because when we are in fear, we are in lack. So I'm fearful. What can you give me to make me feel less fearful? What can you sell me? What do I have to pull into my life in order to get rid of this fear? Is it objects? Is it real estate? What is it that I can bring into my life to just feel a little bit more secure? Oh, the amount of money we spend to feel less fearful. And then they keep us on the edge of that emotional boil. Think about fight or flight. When you are in a life-threatening situation, you can fight, you can flee, or you can freeze. Your body shuts down most of its programs in order to focus on the threat, literally moving all of that blood to the heart to allow you to physically react to the threat. Well, what does it do? It shuts down the logical systems. You are not thinking, you are reacting. When I keep you on the edge of emotion, you are not thinking, you are reacting. And the less logically you think, the less critically you think, the more control I have over the way you act. It's brilliant. It's simple and it's insidious. Keep us divided, keep us afraid, and keep us emotional so that we cannot think through whether what we are doing makes sense for us. So we need to break through this fear culture. And I say this very, very specifically to anyone who feels, this is for anyone. Whether you are a spiritual seeker, someone who believes in souls, seeks answers outside of themselves, or you just want to live a happier life, there is freedom from this fear culture. There are ways to break out of it. And the number one way is just being aware that it's happening so that you can be critical about the content you are consuming. If you're aware, if you accept that this is happening, that there is a fear culture and that it is being enhanced and perpetuated by our media, social and other, then you can discern the content that you are consuming more critically and decide for yourself if the way they want you to feel is how you want to feel. If you want to feel outraged, fine. If you want to feel that your opinion is right and the other person's is wrong, that's fine. If you want to free yourself from being emotionally triggered by any content, then you have to be discerning about what it is that the content's goal is and discerning about how you want to feel. Nobody can control the way that you feel if you are aware that it's a goal of theirs and you are discerning about the information. It is a new form of muscle memory. When you feel yourself starting to get emotionally triggered by anything, Your body has a visceral reaction. Like I was talking about when I was watching Trump, I could feel my body breaking out in goosebumps. When I feel that now, instead of triggering an emotion, it should trigger me to be aware, to come into present moment and be aware this is happening. I am starting to feel something and discern, do I want to feel this way? Is this emotion warranted in this space? And if I don't, then I need to let it go. I need to feel compassion instead of superiority. I need to be open to the other person, the other situation's sovereign soul experience, instead of thinking that my way is correct. And I need to remember that I too am a soul. I am a divine soul here on earth having a human experience. I am not 3D Chris. I am not going to check out of this lifetime and be done. I'm going to get to do this. I'll reframe that. I'm going to get to do this many, many times as I have in the past. This existence is a drop in the thousands of existences we can have. Is that emotion reaction how I want to feel? Is it logical for me to feel that way? What are the ramifications of feeling that way? My inner sovereignty, my soul, is so much more powerful than anything that is happening in the 3D world, and definitely trumps any information that the puppet masters put out to control me. I will not be controlled. And to break that, I need to be aware that it's happening. I need to figure out how it's being triggered in my body so that I can become aware when it happens, and then discern the information for myself critically. And have compassion for the people that are wrapped up in this cycle. This would be the worst time in the world to be in the public eye, because they can make you look like a villain or they can make you look like a hero. And they're not doing it for you. We have to feel for ourselves, feel with our souls, feel with our hearts, and not allow the puppet masters to control us. Or in the immortal words of Carla from Scrubs, don't let him be your puppet master. We are free. We are not broken. We are not divided. We are not controlled. We are sovereign beings here having a human experience. The whole purpose of our coming here, have experiences and to grow. This boiling frog that's been going on for however long, it feels like a decade when I ask Spirit about it. It is a lesson. It is an opportunity for us to grow. So I don't hate on the fact that this is happening, but I will be free of this cycle. And I want to give others the tool to be free as well. So ask yourselves, where in your life are you being triggered? What is making you feel isolated or fearful? What is causing you to have an emotional reaction above and beyond what the situation calls for? And chase that back. Just like I talked about with the dream. I sat there with the dream in my, written down, and slowly unpacked what it meant, and then unpacked what it meant for me. And I had to critically look at my relationship with Trump and how I was reacting in order to inoculate myself to the content that I was consuming. I definitely will change the content that I'm consuming, even the stuff that I thought was, I kept thinking I was doing great because I wasn't watching the news, but the content that I was consuming was anti-Trump. And that's fine. I don't have to change my opinion on the person, but I do not want to have an emotional reaction to someone I don't know. I don't want to forget that they're a soul. I don't want to lose my compassion in my heart because someone else wants me to, because it'll make me easier to control. So, with all that being said, my dear friends, please feel free to share. I would love to hear from others where you are being fed fear. What has been causing emotional reactions and separation instead of compassion and love? Please share those because those stories are going to help other people free themselves. They're going to help other people realize where it is that they have fallen into the boiling frog. They're going to be able to realize where in their lives that heat has been turned up and they haven't even seen it yet. Help other people free themselves. Share your stories. Share your love and compassion instead of your outrage and your hate. Because we are all souls having a human experience. You don't have to agree with another person's journey because only they know it. I know my own journey. I cannot see or control anybody else's. So why should I feel outrage? Why should I feel personally offended? We are not polarized. We are not living on separate sides. We are all one. And that is how I choose to live. If this message resonates with you, please like, subscribe if you'd like to hear more content. I'm trying to come out every Thursday with a new podcast. Share this content with your friends and your family if you think it will help, if you think they will resonate with the message. Again, this is not just for spiritual people, this is for all of us. We are all in this fear culture. And you can break free whether you believe in spirituality, whether you believe in God, religions, atheist, doesn't matter. This fear culture can be broken if we refuse to play. So cut those strings, like this video, and I'll see you next time. Love and light.